everyone, it's Tiffany here. Glad to see you again. This time I'm gonna bring you a new but not so new story. Yeah, the Conjuring. I'm sure everybody heard of it, but to learn it, to study English through the movie, nah. Mm, it's really tricky to learn like this, but it gets it gets fun better each time. So why not? Artist Spencer Tudyk was volunteers for a mass new photo shoot in Sydney. Okay, so the American artist is returning to Sydney, where in 2010 some 5,500 people descended on the city famous opera house to stage his next new installation in order to raise awareness of skin cancer. A flesh-bearing crowd will assemble on beach in Sydney on November 26 in a gathering that is half artwork, half public health campaign. The photographer is partnering with Skin Check Champions, a charity that runs free educational skin checks clinics. The installations will coincide with Australia National Skin Cancer Action Week, when Scott Max, the founder of the charity, will be urging everyone in the country to get a skin check. Max founded Skin Check Champions in 2010 after his friend's West Bonnie was died of skin cancer at the age of 26. The charity has since received endorsements from the likes of businessman Richard Branson and is hoping Tunic's stark photos will draw global attention to the disease. We're aiming for a minimum of 2,000 participants to represent the 2,000 plus Aussies that are killed by skin cancer every year. Said in a press release. If the Sydney Opera House can get 5,500 on a cold morning in March 2010, we are hoping to reach our goal of 2,500, he said. Everyone is welcome to participate. We welcome all body types, genders, and race, with a passion to stop skin cancer in its tracks. Tuna said in a statement that it was an honor to be a part of our mission to raise awareness of the importance of skin checks, and added that he himself would be benefiting from the campaign, having been convinced to get his first skin check in 10 years. Whereas other artists use paint, pastel, charcoal, clay, and more defining material in tonic over his skin. I use the amazing array of body types and skin tone to create my work. So it feels perfectly appropriate to take part in this effort that my medium is that a new human form. Speaking with CNN in May 2020 about his previous shoot, Tudyk said, "My work is getting nude people as close as possible to form an abstraction. To form an abstraction, Tudyk uses his art to destigmatize nudity and encourage people to respect the human body as an art form, like a painting or a sculpture," he told CNN at the time. Tudyk has staged around 100 large-scale nude photos in public places around the world, from Munich to Mexico City, where he shot a reported 18,000 naked participants. But these shoots are not easy. 1,000 of volunteers stripped off. City officials have been known to intervened, leading to Tunick's arrest on multiple occasions. Tunick was one caught in a dispute between the U.S. Supreme Court and New York's then mayor, who believed the city would be irreparably harmed if one of the shoots were staged there. In 2018, an Australian supermarket chain banned Tunick from holding a shoot in the parking lot of one of its Melbourne stores, a decision that was eventually overturned following a high-profile petition. The latest installation will be Tunick's fourth in Australia, was registered to strip up for skin cancer online. The Justice Department is asking a federal judge to force the top two lawyers from Donald Trump's White House counsel's office to testify about their conversations with the former president as it tries to break through the privilege firewall Trump has used to avoid scrutiny of his action on January 6, 2021. According to three people familiar with the investigation, the move to compel additional testimony from former White House counsel Pat Cipollone and Deputy White House counsel Patrick Flippin just last week is part of a set of secret court proceedings. Trump has been fighting to keep former advisors from testifying before a criminal grand jury about certain conversations, citing executive and attorney-client privileges to keep information confidential or slow down criminal investigators. But the Justice Department successfully secured answers from top Vice President advisor Greg Jacob and Mark Short over the past 3 weeks in significant court victories that could make it more likely the criminal investigation reaches further into Trump's inner circle. Jacob's testimony on October 6, which has not been previously reported, is the first identifiable time when the confidentiality Trump has tried to maintain around the West Wing after the 2022 election has been pierced, and the criminal probe following a court battle. A week after Jacob spoke to the grand jury again, Short has his own grand jury appearance date, CNN reported. Of all 4 men previously declined to answer some question about advice and interactions with Trump when they testified in recent months in the secret criminal probe. Trump lost the court battles related to Jacob and Short before the chief judge of the trial levels U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. last month. Attorneys for the men whom the DOJ is seeking to compel have declined to comment for this story or haven't responded to requests. A spokesman for the Justice Department also declined to comment. All 4 men have been willing to be as cooperative as the law demands, leaving Trump's team to handle the fight over certain details in the investigation, the sources say. The litigation around testimony may be important for investigators in the long run, given how close the pair was to the Trump leading up to and during the Capitol riot. Prosecutors are likely to aim for the grand jury to hear about their direct conversations with the then president. The dispute conducted under seal in court because they involve grand jury activity may also spawn several more court fights that will be crucial for prosecutors as they work to bring criminal charges related to Trump's post-elections efforts. Witnesses the federal grand jury has subpoenaed, such as former White House officials Mark Meadows, Eric Hirschman, David Dan Scavino, Stephen Miller, and campaign advisor Boris Epstein, also could decline to describe their conversations with Trump or advice being given to him after the election. Several sources familiar with the investigation say Trump and his allies have used claims of confidentiality, both executive privilege and attorney-client privilege, with mixed result in multiple legal um, quagmires that surround the former president. Those include the January 6th federal criminal investigation, the Mar-a-Lago documents federal criminal investigation, Georgia Fulton County investigation of election meddling, and the House Select Committee probe of January 6 as well. Some of the privilege arguments Trump has raised has never been settled in federal court, and some of the fights could lead to the Supreme Court. Trump spokesman Taylor Budowich slammed the weaponized Justice Department in a statement and referred to the probes surrounding the former president as witch hunts. Court fight so far. According to the sources, the Justice Department won a trial-level judge order at the end of September that said Jacob and Short must testify and respond to certain questions over which Trump teams has tried to claim presidential and attorney-client. The sealed court case stemming from the grand jury works had been before the chief judge of the D.C. District Court, Barry Howell. Howell refused to put on hold Jacob and Short testimony while Trump team's appeal, a source said. The Trump team, meanwhile, took several days to respond to their loss before Howell in court. The Justice Department set a quick turnaround date for Jacob, leaving him to head into the grand jury under subpoena on October 6th, according to several sources. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals is still considering legal arguments from Trump's defense lawyers and the Justice Department over his ability to make executive and attorney-client privilege claims. How that is resolved, either by the appeals court or even the Supreme Court, if Trump pursues it that far, could have significant consequences for the January 6th criminal investigation and for multiple witnesses who may be refusing to share some of what they know because of Trump's privilege claims. Among a large group of former top Trump officials, Jacob has been one of the most stirring voices condemning the then president's actions after the election, especially regarding the pressure he and his election attorney John Eastman tried to place on then Vice President Mike Pence to block the congressional certification of the presidential vote. Jacob has been a harsh critic of Eastman, who is also of interest to prosecutors dating back to when Eastman tried to convince Pence's office the vice president alone could override the vote. He told Eastman at the time the right-wing attorney was a serpent in the ear of the president and wrote while Trump supporters stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021, thanks to your bullshit. Thanks to your bullshit, we are now under sick. Okay. Jacob added to a parade of star witnesses at Public House Select Committee hearings this summer, speaking candidly about his disgust with what he witnesses inside the White House complex from his high-ranking positions administration. There is almost no idea more un-America than the notion that any one person would choose to the American president and then unbroken historical practice for 230 years that the vice president did not have such an authority. Jacob testified in July. But what Jacob and Short knew of Trump's conversation, they wouldn't disclose to the House nor to the grand jury until this month. In a tape House Select Committee depositions, he answered many questions about what happened inside the West Wing on January 6, but declined to describe communication between him and Trump. President Joe Biden has repeatedly declined to assert executive privilege around January 6 information, essentially leaving the fight for Trump to wage opposite the Justice Department. While the courts will look at each situation individually, his story isn't on Trump's side. Federal prosecutors investigating former President Bill Clinton and Richard Nixon were able to overcome attorney-client privilege assertions for White House counsels as well as executive privilege assertions, so the grand jury could hear closely guarded information. Matthew Perry reflects on his relationship with Julia. Matthew Perry reflects on his relationship with Julia Roberts and why he ended. Matthew Perry reflects on his relationship with Julia Roberts and why he ended. Matthew Perry opens up in his new book about his attention-getting relationship with Julia Roberts in the mid-90s and the reason it came to an end. The actor recalls in his new memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, according to an excerpt published by the Times of London, that Roberts expressed interest in appearing on Friends, but she would only do the show if she could be in Chandler's storyline. At the urging of Friends creator Marta Kaufman, Perry sent Roberts 3 dozen roses and a wedding card in an effort to woo the Pretty Woman star to take the job. Thus began a 3-month-long courtship by daily faxes that was pre-internet, pre-cell phones, and all our exchange were done by fax. And there were many hundred, Perry writes, going on to describe how 3 or 4 times a day I would sit by my fax machine and watch the piece of paper slowly revealing her next missive. Soon the faxes were romantic, leading to 5-hour phone conversations before the pair had even met face to face. Finally, Roberts showed up at Perry's door. When I opened it, there she was. There was a smiling Julia Roberts on the other side. I believe I said something like, "Oh, that Julia Roberts," Perry says in the memoir, recalling his Chandler-style reaction. From there, the pair quickly began a relationship and were a couple when Roberts appeared in Friends episode that was set to air after the Super Bowl. Perry goes on to describe some of the sweeter moments during their short-lived romance, including a visit to Roberts' families in Taos, New Mexico for New Year's 1996. But 2 months later, I was single. Dating Julia Roberts had been too much for me. I have been constantly I had been constantly certain that she was going to break up with me. Why would she not? Um, Alluding to his crippling issues that he identifies as the core of his part addictive behavior. Perry adds, I was not enough. I could never be enough. I was broken, bent, unlovable. So instead of facing the inevitable agony of losing her, I broke up with the beautiful and brilliant Julia Roberts. In his memoir, Perry also discusses his struggle with alcohol and addiction and what ultimately led him to sobriety. I wanted to share when I was safe from going into the dark side of everything again. Perry recently told people of the new book. I had to wait until I was pretty safely sober and away from the active disease of alcoholism and addiction to write it all down. And the main thing was I was pretty certain that it would help people. From 1979 to 1990, when she was forced to resign by her own government, Thatcher was a strident coal warrior and a supporter of free markets, and especially close to President Ronald Reagan, one of the Britain's most divisive prime minister, revile and revere in almost equal measure to this day. She's best known for her policies. She's best known for her policy on deregulation, privatizing state-owned companies, and smashing the power of unions. She died in 2013. Whether international or not, observers and the public have pointed out Truss appears to have a habit of recreating iconic Thatcher public appearance. While serving as Foreign Secretary, Truss was accused of consciously mirroring Thatcher by posing in a Challenger 2 tank while visiting British troops in Estonia. A famous picture of Thatcher in the Challenger tank in Germany in 1986, when visiting Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the Kremlin in February. She wore a fox for a hat that again was compared to that worn by Thatcher on a Russia trip in 1987. During the Conservative leadership contest, Truss wore an outfit strikingly similar to one Thatcher had worn for an election broadcast in 1979, a black blazer and a white shirt with a bow tie at the front. For Truss critics, the similarities to Thatcher's are the best premature and worst ludicrous. I don't think there is anything in it. They're completely different people. Truss supporter Andrea Andino, 55, insisted outside the venue where Truss was announced the new leader of the Conservative Party on Monday. Andino wore a t-shirt in Liz with Truss. She's different. I don't think she will follow Thatcher in any way, she added. Timothy Kirkhope, a Conservative member of the upper chamber of the British Parliament, also dismissed the comparison, but for different reasons. I regard any comparison between Truss and Thatcher as derisory, he said in an email. I worked as a government whip under Margaret Thatcher. She was a colossus in politics. There is absolutely no way that Truss could ever get anywhere near the achievements of Thatcher, he said. Truss herself complained to BBC Radio 4 in July that women tend to get compared to Thatcher whether they resemble her or not. I'm on my own person, she said. James Cleverly, who served as an education minister under Boris Johnson, echoes these sentiments. She's a woman in politics, though comparisons are inevitable, and he said, she is Liz Truss, she's her own person. To those of us who have studied Thatcher, she's hardly in the same league, at least At least on current form, said Professor Tim Bell, an expert on British politics and the Conservative Party at Queen Mary University of London. While Thatcher was regarded then and now was a conviction politician who embodied her beliefs, Truss has been accused of being a political chameleon, flip-flopping on major policies and criticized for lacking hard and fast principles. She was an activist for the centrist Liberal Democrat Party as a college student. We do not believe people are born to be ruled. She said while arguing passionately for the abolition of the monarchy at the party conference in 1994, a testament to just how far she has traveled politically. Truss campaigned for Britain to remain in the European Union only flip side and later support Brexit once the country has voted to leave in 2016. The commitment to Brexit and unlocking its supposed benefits is now a core pillar of her platform, an attitude that could lead to a heated and expensive legal battle with the European Union and the Republic of Ireland over the complex of Northern Ireland Protocol. While Truss said during the Brexit referendum campaign that Britain shouldn't spend years in massive divorce from Europe, she may be about to preside over exactly this. Born in Oxford in 1975, Mary Elizabeth Truss is the daughter of John Kenneth, a math professor at the University of Leeds, and Priscilla Truss, a nurse. In the biography section of her website, she described her parents as left-wing. When she was 4, the family relocated to Paisley, a town near Glasgow in Scotland. They moved again in 1985 to the northern English city of Leeds in West Yorkshire. Truss frequently refers to herself as a Yorkshire woman, a falsy attempt to contract her upbringing with the largely affluent Southern English background of many Conservative members and activists. Throughout her leadership campaign, Truss said her vision of conservatism was inspired by seeing fellow students at the local public high school struggling in an overly bureaucratic failing system. Many of the children I was at school with were let down by low expectations, poor education standards, and a lack of opportunity, she said at her leadership launch July 14. Former student and staff at Raleigh and also local politicians dispute Truss' portrayal, accusing her of unfairly mangling the school for political gain. It is located in one of the most affluent areas of Leeds, and it certainly could never be described fairly as a sink school, he said via email, referring to British terminology for a failing and underachieving school. Her contentions about her deprived background as the daughter of the university professor are a load of nonsense, Crithope said. After graduating from Oxford in 1969, she abandoned the Liberal Democrats and joined the Conservative Party, the dismay of her left-leaning father. He was quite horrified, she told the Times newspaper in 2012. After college, Truss worked as a graduate trainee accountant for the energy giant Shell and later the telecommunications company Cable and Wireless. In 2000, she married fellow accountant Hugh O'Leary, and they have 2 daughters. After a youth on the center-left university prime Truss for conservation to the right, I met Tories and I realized that they didn't have 2 heads and were actually good people, she told the Daily Mail in 2019. Truss stood as a Tory candidate in the election of 2001 and 2005, losing both times. It would take another 5 years before she was finally elected as the MP for South West Norfolk Truss has served in various cabinet positions since 2012 under the governments of David Cameron, Theresa May, and Johnson. It was under Johnson that she was promoted to foreign minister, one of the most powerful positions in government. Truss was leading the transitions to a post-Brexit trading rim and forging new diplomatic ties. The Conservative Party may have ditched Johnson, but his brand of populism looks set to stay under the new prime minister. She stayed loyal to Johnson. She told the membership that they want to hear on the economy and taxations rather than any hard truths. She is a fierce Brexiteer and an anti-woke warrior, Bell said. Truss may be compared to Thatcher, but her critics believe she has much more in common with her predecessor. I regret that a Liz Truss premiership would be a continuation of the Boris Johnson style. Kipper said a Truss government would be even more divisive and include individuals who are notable only for their extreme or eccentric view, he said. Steve Bannon expected to face state indictment in New York. The Manhattan DA office had opened an investigation into Bannon in connection with his role in a charity that was supposed to use private funds to build the U.S.-Mexico border wall. Almost 2 years after he received a pardon from President Donald Trump in a federal fraud case, Steve Bannon is expected to face state indictment in New York. In a statement first shared with NBC News on Tuesday night, Bannon said New York has now decided to pursue phony charges against me 60 days before the midterm election. This is nothing more than a Persian political weaponization of the criminal justice system, added Bannon, who once was the chief White House strategist in the Trump administration. The statement came after the Washington Post, citing people familiar with the situation, reported that Bannon planned to surrender Thursday. NBC News has asked the Manhattan District Attorney Office for comment. The District Attorney Office last year opened an investigation into Bannon in connection with his role in a charity that was supposed to use private funds to build the U.S.-Mexico border wall, NBC News reported in February 2021. The previous year, Bannon was indicted with 3 other people on charges of taking money donated to help build a wall along the southern border. Federal prosecutors alleged that Bannon's We Build the Wall campaign, which raised more than $25 million, defraud hundreds of thousands of donors who contribute to an effort to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, one of Trump's key campaign promises. Trump pardoned Bannon in January 2021, but presidential pardons apply only to federal charges, meaning New York is not prohibited from pursuing similar charges. I am proud to be a leading voice on protecting our borders, and building a wall to keep our country safe from drugs and violent criminals, Bannon said in Tuesday night's statement. They are coming after all of us, not only President Trump and myself. I am never going to stop fighting. In fact, I have not yet begun to fight. They will have to kill me first. Separately, Bannon was convicted of contempt of Congress after he refused to answer questions from the House January 6th committee. A jury found him guilty on 2 counts of contempt of Congress in July. A woman jumped from a moving car after being kidnapped by a man who asked for water, authorities say. Jeremy Alaska, 31, is accused of holding the woman at knife point in Washington state. Authorities in Washington state identified a suspect Tuesday who they say carjacked a woman and held her at knife point point until she escaped by jumping from a moving car. The woman had given water to Jeremy Alaska, 31, after he approached her vehicle asking for some in an incident that began in Vancouver, Washington. Early Saturday, the Clark County Sheriff's Office said in a news release. Alaska is expected to be charged with kidnapping, robbery, and attempted eluding after he fled from officers, the sheriff's office said. The woman, who has not been identified, told authorities after she gave Alaska water, she allowed him into her car. Alaska produced a knife and used the threat of violence to take control of the car. The release alleged, adding that he drove roughly 15 miles to the city of Camas. Alaska slowed down on a dirt road, authorities said, and the woman jumped from the car and started banging on the doors of the nearby homes. A resident, James Wood, told NBC affiliate KGW of Portland, Oregon, that he and his family awoke around 4:30 a.m. to the sound of a woman pounding on the back door of his home and moving the doorknob. She was desperate to get in, which I can't understand, Wood told the station. She told me that someone tried to kill her and someone stole her car. Was told the station that he called 911 after deputies searched the area and found the car. The driver fled, according to the release. 11 minutes later, and about 8 miles away, authorities from the sheriff's office and the Vancouver Police Department were able to pin the car. And the release says Alaska was taken into custody after he tried to flee the vehicle. The release says he refused to provide his name and was identified through other names. The sheriff's office says it wasn't immediately clear whether he has a lawyer to speak on his behalf. Police say that they have found.
Turning now to breaking news in the investigation of that missing Memphis jogger and mother of two. Police confirmed today the body of 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher has.
Police say that they have found the remains of the missing jogger Eliza Fletcher. Memphis authorities have confirmed a body found during the search for Eliza Fletcher was identified as the 34-year-old woman who was abducted during a run Friday morning. NBC News Chris reports on the news details police have released and the latest charges against the suspect charged with kidnapping Fletcher. And that is the end for today. Hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya. Oh, and by the way, all the tips I gave you last time, I hope it worked, because it worked for me, and I think that it worked for most people with average memory. I myself have average memory, and I couldn't learn anything besides English, because I hate everything. I hate every subject besides English. The only thing that I find English is interesting because it was another language, and I hate math. I hate math. I especially hate math, and I don't want to, calculate anything, and I not good at calculating things. So that's why I hate math. And about English is that when I was small, when I was about 9 years old, I watched Disney Channel a lot, and that is when I know I like English, because Disney Channel is all about English. If you don't understand English, so yeah, I watch it, and although I don't understand a word it was saying about what is the movie about and what it's called, I just remember the melody. Phineas and Ferb, right? I just remember that the song in the intro song right from the start. I remember the melody, the way they pronounce, but I don't know for sure how they pronounce it. So I just remember the melody and I sing along. So that is when I remember all the stuff and all the words that I accidentally remember by remembering the melody. So when I said that music can help you a lot, I mean it. So if you guys try it, and if you have any, like positive result, comment below, and uh, follow for more if you like my tips and you find it effective. So yeah, thank you and goodbye. Oh, one more thing. I also like English, and I only good at speaking, and I'm not good at grammar. Yeah, I also not good at grammar. I only good at speaking because I can, like mumbling to the sound and um, like for example, they sing like what's going on, so I will like mama mama. I remember the sound. I don't remember what they're saying, and I don't know what they're saying, but I remember the sound. So when I grow up, it means when I was in secondary school or something like that, I learned it and I know, oh, so that's what it is, that what it was about, and yeah, that's how I learned it. And I only good at speaking because I remember the basic words, the basic step that they say. For example, hello, how are you? How are you today? You're good? Are you good? How are you today? I'm good. Thank you for asking. Like just basic stuff, and I get better and better through movies. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I got. I don't know if I could help you with that, but I think for myself, I'm getting better, and you have to learn. You you cannot learn English without learning it. Uh, you know, without actually learning it. So you have to put time and effort into learning stuff, and eventually it will come out great. It will get you a positive result and a, a very good result that you want. So don't give up and don't lose trust in yourself, especially when you find it hard. Just take a break and get some air, go outside, have fun with your friends for a day if you're feeling stressed about studying stuff, and after that you get it together and yeah, just study, dude. That's it. China had come away from victorious, the Chinese government sees, said CSAT had protect people's life and health from COVID, turned Hong Kong from chaos to governance, and carried out major struggles against independence forces in the islands of Taiwan, a self-governing democracy Beijing claims at its own territory despite having never controlled it. Wen T-Song, a political scientist with the Australia National University Taiwan Study Program, said Xi's decisions to flag the Taiwan's issue early on his speech was a departure from previous speeches and conveys a newfound urgency on making progress on the Taiwan issues. Xi won the loudest and longest applause from the nearly 2,300 hand-picked delegates inside the Great Hall of People when he spoke about Taiwan again later in the speech. He said China would strive for peaceful reunification, but then gave gave a grim warning, saying we will never promise to renounce the use of force and we reserve the option of taking all measures necessary. The wheels of history are rolling on towards China reunification and the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. Complete reunification of our country must be realized. She said to thundering applause. She also underscored the rapid changes in the international situation, a thinly veiled reference to the fraying ties between China and the West, which have been further strained by Beijing tacit support for Moscow following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He said China has taken a clear stand against power politics and never wavered in opposition to annihilarism and bullying, in an apparent jab at what Beijing views as a U.S.-led world order that needs to be dismantled. Laying out broad direction for the next 5 years. She said China would focus on high-quality education and innovation to renew growth. In the country crisis-hit economy, China will speed up efforts to achieve greater self-reliance in science and technology. He said in comments that come just months after his damaging crackdown on the country private sector and major tech companies. She also vowed to speed up efforts to build the People's Liberation Army (PLA) into a world-class military, pledging to improve the PLA ability to safeguard national sovereignty and build strategic deterrence. He also urged the PLA to strengthen its training and improve its ability to win. The speech was peppered with the Chinese term for security, which was mentioned about 15 times. He called national security the foundation of rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and urged enhancing security in military, economy, and all aspects, both at home and abroad. Another point of focus was masserism and ideology. I don't think there will be any realization of the ideological atmosphere in the coming 5 years, said Victor Xi, an expert on elite Chinese politics at the University of California. Daley Yang, a political scientist at the University of Chicago, said the direction laid out in Xi's opening speech were continuation of his previous policy by emphasizing the challenges and struggle. He said it justifies the need for a strong party and its great leader. The week-long Congress kicked off on Sunday morning amid heightened security, escalated zero-COVID restrictions, and a frenzy of propaganda and censorship. The Communist Party most consequential meeting in decades, the Congress is set to cement Xi's status as the China's most powerful leader since late Chairman Mao Zedong, who ruled until his death age 82. It will also have a profound impact on the world as he doubles down on an assertive foreign policy to boost China's international clout and rewrite the U.S.-led global order. The meetings will be mostly held behind closed doors throughout the week when delegates remerge at the end of the Congress next Saturday. They will conduct a ceremonial vote to rubber stamp the work report and approve changes made to the party constitution, which might bestow Xi with new titles to further strengthen his power. The delegates will also select the party new Central Committee, which will hold its first meeting the next day to appoint the party top leadership. The Politburo and its standing committee following decisions already hashed out behind the scenes by party leaders before the Congress. The Congress will be a major moment of political triumph for Xi, but it also comes during a period of potential crisis. Xi's insistence on an uncompromising zero-COVID policy has fueled mounting public frustration and crimped economic growth. Meanwhile, diplomatically, his no-limits friendship with Russia President Vladimir Putin has further strained Beijing ties with the West following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. In the lead-up to the Congress, officials across China drastically ramped up restrictions to prevent even minor COVID outbreaks, imposing sweeping lockdowns and increasingly frequent mass COVID tests over a handful of cases. Yet infections caused by the highly transmissible Omicron variant have continued to flare. On Saturday, China reported nearly 1,200 infections, including 14 in Beijing. Public anger towards zero COVID to the fore Thursday in an exceptional rare protest against Xi in Beijing. Online photos show two banners were unfurled on a busy overpass denouncing Xi and his policy before being taken down by police. Say no to COVID tests, yes to food, no to lockdown, yes to freedom, no to lies, yes to dignity, no to cultural revolution, yes to free reform, no to great leader, yes to vote. Don't be a slave, be a citizen. One banner reads, "Go on strike, remove dictator and national traitor Xi Jinping." Read the other. The Chinese public have paid little attention to the party congresses in the past. They have no say in the country leadership's reshuffles or the making of major policies. But this year, many have pinned their hopes on the Congress to be a turning point for China to relax its COVID policy. A series of recent articles in the party mouthpiece, however, suggests that could be wishful thinking. The People daily hailed zero COVID as the best choice for the country, insisting it is sustainable and must be followed. On Sundays, he defended his highly contentious, and economically damaging zero COVID policy. In responding to the sudden outbreak of COVID-19, we prioritize the people and their lives above all else. The tenaciously pursued dynamic zero COVID policy in launching all-out people's war against the virus, he said. Alfred Wu, an associate professor at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore, says the worst signal it is impossible for China to change the zero COVID strategy in the near future. Where do the richest Americans live? Have you checked the newest Forbes 400, the full list of the richest people in America yet? Surprise! Bill Gates, with a net worth of $81 billion, is ranked no one for the 23rd, 23rd year running. Meanwhile, his friend Warren Buffett fell to third place for the first time in 15 years with a net worth of $65.5 billion. Thanks to soaring stock prices of hot tech firms, CEOs at the helm of those companies seem to have been accumulating wealth at a much faster pace than others. Amazon.com CEO Jeff Bezos gained $20 billion to boost his net worth to $67 billion, making him the second richest person in the U.S. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg jumped into fourth place, his highest rank ever, with a net worth of $55.5 billion. However, Oracle founder Larry Ellison landed at no 5 for the first time since 2007. His net worth is $49.3 billion. Standing on the no sixth spot is the former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, CEO of the eponymous firm Bloomberg LP, who has a net worth of $45 billion. These six richest multi-billionaires have a combined of $63.3 billion at their withdrawal, most of which is still held at stake in the companies they found. However, part of their fortune is vested in real estate. Mr. Gates, for one, owns a Washington mansion worth about mansion worth about $170 million, several horse ranches across the U.S., and share in some luxury hotel chains through his private investment firm Cascade. Here, take a look at their residences in the six richest moguls call home. 81 billion home, Medina, Washington. Mr. Gates, 60, spent most of his time at his 66,000 square foot Medina, Washington mansion, nicknamed Xanadu 2.0 after the title character estate in Citizen Kane. The mansion overlooks Lake Washington. It took Mr. Gates 7 years and $63.2 million to build this house, which is filled with lots of high-tech features. He purchases the lot for $2 million in 1988, but it's now worth an estimated $170 million according to public records. Mr. Jeff Bezos, $67 billion, home, Medina, Washington. Mr. Bezos, 52, in the process of building his e-commerce empire, scooped up a vast amount of real properties over the years, earning him the no 26th spot on the land report list of America's largest landowners last year. In terms of residences, he has a 165-acre ranch in West Texas, a waterfront house in Washington State, 3 linked apartments in Manhattan Century Tower, and a 12,000 square foot Beverly Hills estate that boasts Tom Cruise as a neighbor, according to Forbes. His home at Medina, Washington, close to Amazon headquarters, boasts at 5.35 acres, I guess, at about 29,000 square foot of living space. Aside from the main house, there's also a caretaker cottage and a 1,500 square foot boathouse on Lake Washington. Okay, so Warren Buffett worth $65.5 billion in home, Omaha, Nebraska.